Hello, welcome to another video. In this video I'll be doing my January wrap-up and February TBR. In January I read a total of 10 books and I found it to be a successful month as I enjoyed most of the books that I read. I read 6 books towards my 2015 reading challenge, link in the description below, and I read 4 other books that I just wanted to read. So the first 2 books I read didn't count towards my reading challenge. I read Belladonna and Iona. Both of these books I really enjoyed, and I do have the 3rd book of the Secrets of the Eternal Rose trilogy sitting on my TBR for February, so I can finish that trilogy. My TBR jar pick of the month was Serenity, Volume 1, Those Left Behind, and I did read that one. I also read another graphic novel, The Walking Dead Volume 2, Miles Behind Us. I didn't enjoy that one quite as much, but probably because I'm not usually into the horror genre. I also read Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This one, unfortunately, I didn't enjoy as much as I thought I would. Probably because I'm not usually into classics and it seemed really slow. Perhaps it's because I had read 2 really epic books before. Iona especially is an epic novel, but I just couldn't get really into it. I might give it a chance another time, but for right now I've only rated it 2 stars, but that's okay. After I finished The Picture of Dorian Gray, I just wanted something that I was almost positive I was going to enjoy, and so I picked up The Iron Trial by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. Loved it. Definitely going to continue on with the series as they are published. The next book I picked up was Wonder by R.J. Palacio. This one was one recommended to me by a bunch of my students, but I also purchased it when I saw it bundled together with the 365 Days of Wonder, and so I picked that up. This was a pretty heart-wrenching story. It was really good, and it's definitely one I'll be sharing with students as I continue on my teaching career. Next I picked up Sapphire Blue, also for my reading challenge, and this one was harder to get into, probably because it had been a while since I'd read Ruby Red, but I did enjoy it, and I'm picking up Emerald Green for February. Next, to change up the genre a little bit, I read a contemporary by Jenny Han, To All the Boys I've Loved Before. I wasn't sure how I was going to like this one because I've tried to read Jenny Han before and I didn't really like her style so much, but I was happily surprised that I did enjoy this book. And then I rounded out my month and I read an ebook, Let Down Your Hair. It's a kind of a modern retelling of Rapunzel. I was also a little apprehensive about this one because there were a lot of mixed reviews on Goodreads, but I quite enjoyed it. To finish off January, I read Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. This one I borrowed from a student, so it didn't fit on my 2015 reading challenge list, but I did enjoy it. It's one I've kind of wanted to read, but I didn't really want to buy it. It's one I'll probably pick up from the library, and if the series continues to be as good as the first book, then maybe I'll consider buying them, but it's not one I'm going to purchase right away. So for February, I've got a list of 12 books I'd like to get through. This one might be a little bit more challenging, but I've got a couple of days coming up that I've got off from school, and so I might be able to get quite a bit of reading done then. So the first book I already read in February is an ebook, which I got as a gift as in a read to review situation from the author. I read The Remedy Files Illusion. I've got a full review posted below so you can check that out and see my thoughts on that book. Next up, I've got 2 graphic novels. So I've got Lost and Found by Sean Tan, and I've got The Arrival by Sean Tan. Ultimately, my goal this month is to continue to knock books off of my TBR list. I've got a very large list, as you'll see a little later, and I just want to get it down. There are also a lot of books from my 2015 reading challenge so that I can complete that as soon as possible. So I've got Wartime Princess, and this one is a short novel based on a true story and it'll fit with my reading challenge. And I've got Emerald Green by Kirsten Gear. This is the 3rd book in the Ruby Red trilogy. I just picked up Fairest, and I will be reading this to complete one of my challenges. Legend, the first in the Legend trilogy by Marie Lu. The next 5 books aren't actually on my reading challenge list, but they're on my TBR, so I'm going to try and cut that list down again. So the first book I've got is Shadow and Bone. It's the 1st book in the Grisha trilogy by Lee Bardugo. And I'll change it up a little bit and I'll read 1000 Gifts. Next, I'll do a throwback to middle years. I'm going to read one of these short romance novels I read in middle school. Another middle years book, Neenoch Rise by Natalie Babbitt. And lastly on my list for the month is Starling. It's the 3rd book in the Secrets of the Eternal Rose trilogy that I started last year. I've also created a kind of chart about the books I have to read. This will help maybe keep me a little more focused on reading my TBR list rather than going to buy new books or borrowing more books from the library. I mean, don't get me wrong, the library is wonderful, but when I've got a TBR list like this, I need to read more books from it. This is my kind of chart about my TBR list. Hopefully this will keep me a little more on task to actually reading my books that I do have. I've got how many books I have owned and unread. That's a scary number. The books from the library, NetGalley, and how many I borrowed from other people. And then my date of last purchase. So that's all for today. Until next time, keep your nose in a book.